Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another Toolbox Extra on the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with this week's guest, but as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. So stay with us for the next 3 minutes. Remember, these are all companies I used as an AD. They're all great companies. You should be using them too. Here we go. We want to thank our good friends at Sideline Interactive Indoor Score Tables and Video Boards. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive Indoor Score Table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. We also want to thank our good friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but as an AD, we were a Huddle school. And our coaches, our student athletes, even our parents just love the platform. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame, along with Beacon. You know, they have been promoting programs and legacies for schools for the past decade, but the new Beacon Creative app has a lot more. It is a creative content service that's going to supply you stories for your digital platforms. We hear all the time that schools don't celebrate their students as much as they'd like to, but with Beacon, they're going to allow you to celebrate those student stories without lifting a finger. Email John, John, at beaconwalloffame.com. That's John at beaconwalloffame.com to find out how. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform you're going to use every day for scheduling, rosters, results. Their eligibility and clearance platform alone, hey, it's a game changer. Go to homecampus.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast and find out all the great things they can do for you. We also want to thank Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and let their team turn you into a social media marketing genius. Promote your students, promote your teams, promote your platform and your program throughout the community. Gipper provides the tools to help you tell your story, engage your audience, and grow your brand. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We also want to thank Hometown. Hometown continues to change the game for schools with their suite of solutions that includes things like, well, digital ticketing, of course, but how about athletic website construction, fee-free fundraising, and a lot more. As a principal, as an AD, as a coach, Hometown's going to show you how to save time, how to raise more money, and how to bring your community together. That's hometown.com. We also want to thank Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. My assistant AD, along with thousands of others, got his master's through the Ohio program. And while they earned their degree, they also completed 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Check out Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. We want to thank Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then be disappointed in the results? Well, those days are over. Go to snapraise.com. We used it at our school and had tremendous success. Our teams, our coaches, our parents just loved it. Check out all their other great platforms, but go to snapraise.com. You found your fundraiser. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. At my school, we use surveys for everything: students, coaches, parents, and the information that came back gave us tremendous data, a lot of it positive, that we could share with our principal, our school board, and others. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. And as always, don't forget to mention the podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of our Toolbox Extra on the Educational AD Podcast. We've got somebody that I like to call a friend of the show. She was first involved with the podcast in our small school athletic director project of, I guess it'd be about 2 years ago. She went from there to the 4th edition of the Athletic Director's Toolbox. So she's a part of 2 of our most popular books. And she's the Director of Athletics at Lakehill Prep in the Dallas area. Our guest today is Jhoanna Cayme-Mosely, longtime AD, also longtime volleyball coach. This is her first time back on Toolbox Extra. Shame on me. We should have had her a long time before. But Jhoanna, welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
Well, you and I spent a little bit of time before we hit record, talking about different things. These topics are, let's say, guest centric. So I'm just going to say, what do you have for our listeners on this edition of the Toolbox Extra?
So I think, this may be a popular topic from the books that I've read that you've written, but relationships always come up, which is why all of us got into coaching, right? That's probably one of the biggest things that we remember from our previous coaches as athletes growing up. And I think I've said this before in one of the other podcasts, like when you're in admin, it's not just an opportunity to build relationships, it becomes our responsibility to make sure those relationships are being built between our coaching staff and their athletes, just within the community with parents and coaches. And so it goes beyond, being an opportunity. It just becomes our responsibility. And so that's kind of how I look at things. But to expand even more, I really have seen firsthand, just literally in the past year and everything that's happened in my professional career, the growth and the benefits that you can bring to your own school with building relationships outside of that school, outside of your community, with other athletic directors, with other organizations. And so that's kind of just been top of mind as far as one of those, toolkit extras is investing in building those relationships even outside of your school community because it brings so much more opportunity within your own school. So, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, the relationship category of our
Yeah.
toolbox, it's so foundational. As you mentioned, it's always one of the most frequently mentioned tools, but it also has such a diverse application. And you mentioned it, relationships within your school, with your coaches, with your student athletes, with parents, administration. It's almost endless, but then you expand that relationships in your network, in your league, your conference, your state, and then nationally and beyond. And, you shared with me, you're building new relationships, within your state. So
Yeah.
great. It's a great talking point.
It is. It is. And kind of one of the things too is that I really wanted to focus on is when you are building those relationships outside of your school community, what it can do, what it can bring into your coaching staff or your department. And, one of those things, like I said, a lot has kind of happened in the past year, career-wise for me. But, I'm part of the Texas Association of Private and Parochial Schools, TAPS, is our governing body. And it is essentially the governing body for all of athletics for private and parochial schools. So we have a little bit over 240 schools, member schools that range in size 1A to 6A. And we have a TAPS convention every June. And the keynote speaker was his name is Travis Wyckoff, and he had a resonating speech about in culture and cultivating culture and not just creating it or speaking it, but actually cultivating it and helping it grow. And I we spoke to him, and I really, really wanted him to be able to speak to my coaching staff because his message resonated so much with me, and they weren't able to make this convention because they were running summer workouts at our own school and everything else. But having that relationship with other athletic directors and kind of building that foundation within our little bubble. I myself, as a school, we probably wouldn't have been able to cover his speaking fee of coming and speaking to our coaches, but like literally day of convention, right after he spoke, I had that relationship and I've been able to over the years build that relationship with a lot of the different schools within our area that I essentially went straight to them after that session and said, hey, let's partner up and split the cost of his speaker fee, and everybody can bring their coaching staff. So that made it a little bit more manageable, essentially. We were dividing up his speaker fee cost wise that we were dividing it up between 5 to 7 schools. And we hosted it at our facility and had, invited him and like found a date, and essentially everyone brought whatever coaches, they invited their whole coaching staff. I invited my head of school was there. We invited administrators. And so just kind of building that relationship with your peer athletic directors of the schools that you compete against. One, it doesn't ever have to be like conversations you have with other athletic directors. They don't ever have to be because there's conflict between the schools. Like I hate thinking that, or I hate people thinking that when when athletic directors talk, it's always because something happened. And that doesn't really have to be the case at all. I have a really good group that we meet. Golly, we're overdue, but we meet, once every couple of months to just roundtable it. Hey, this is what's going on. This is how would you handle this? Or, this happened. And it's just so refreshing to be able to share things and realize like you're not on your own, but building those relationships, cultivating those relationships and investing in them leads to providing opportunities for my staff and my coaches to, hear this guy speak about cultivating culture. And was a great speaker and would recommend him, to come speak to anybody. Really, he had such a great presentation, but having those relationships with those other schools is what made that possible. And hey, let's split the fee, and then now we can make it's a lot more feasible for each of our budgets, and we can bring, you bring your whole coaching staff. It doesn't matter. You can bring 20 people, you can bring five, whoever can make it. Let's just make this a group thing, because all of our coaches are in it for the same reason, right? And so having those relationships with other athletic directors and being able to provide that opportunity as well for your staff. And that's kind of one of the things that the relationship component can bring. Building those relationships outside of your school community, but also the things that it can bring within your community and to your staff.
Such a great idea bringing in a speaker for your own coaches, and then building on that, sharing the burden, if you will, because sometimes those
Yeah.
big time speakers cost a lot. I'm curious, what kind of feedback did you get from your own coaches? Was it, oh geez, we have to share this with the other schools, or also what type of feedback did you get on the shared conference as a whole? Great
Yeah.
idea.
I think that it was actually, we have competed with each other for so long, and they know, I think it changes coaches, especially new coaches that are new to your school and new to your staff. You kind of go in and oh well, they're very quick to pick up, oh well, that school's a rival, or that's going to be a heated game, or that's going to this is going to be a tough one. And, oh, we've hated them and we always lose to them or can't beat them, whatever it is, right? But again, I think it's kind of one of those things that they see. They see myself and the other school's athletic directors having, conversations and are in constant contact with each other, that it just kind of takes away the hostility within the coaching staffs. Now, rivalries are rivalries. It's sports, it's athletics. You can't avoid that. But when admin and leadership are in a really good place with each other, I think it sets the tone for the district or whoever the classification. And so every coach that came, it was super pleasant. Now, we didn't mix and mingle. So you had this school's coaches sitting at one table, and
Right.
I think they weren't there. They weren't to that point, but um it's not like they weren't going to have a conversation with each other, right? It was very we said hi, it was pleasant. We have developed such good relationships with these schools that it's all based on mutual respect, and at the foundation of it, right? And so despite the wins and losses, it was super pleasant. I thought it was pretty eye-opening. That was kind of one of the things that they mentioned to me as far as feedback afterwards of micro behavior. He talks about this in the speaker in his session, is the micro behaviors of just kind of the things that we do that kind of work to cultivate that culture. And so and we talk about all that, and you see a lot of things that you do yourself as a coach. But it was eye-opening, and it was really, a lot of the coaches wanted to do it again. Really like to have just more of a joint session like that. And I think it was maybe an hour and a half. Like it wasn't very long at all.
Well,
And so we got really good feedback from it, and the not having the pressure of seeing your peers in on a competition field, right? It was a very pretty
right.
laid back. It was in the summer, so it wasn't a bad thing at all. Like I would definitely, that's something that I would actually look to doing again.
Well, again, the fact that they're asking that they said they did have a good time and they wanted to do it again, absolutely. And now here's my free advice: have your speaker come in, but then take a break for lunch and then come back and have those sessions where there's
Yeah.
maybe by sport or just there's a lot of different ways you could take it. Great opportunity.
Yeah, it's worked out, and that's something I would like to build. I think I'm really passionate about good professional development, and always learning and trying to educate yourself as a coach, as a leader, whatever it may be, to always just kind of grow, keep growing, keep going to things. As a volleyball coach, I know I'm not coaching this year, but I always kind of refer to myself as a volley nerd. I could sit and watch somebody coach and just pick up on things and like how they run drills or just their mannerisms or how they conduct themselves with the team. And I just love seeing other people's coaching styles. That's kind of something I promote within my own staff is just go see somebody coach. Like go see somebody coach, go see one of our coaches coach, but not in your sport, and just kind of see them in their element. So that's I love finding professional development like that. And again, that came to fruition because I had the relationship with other schools that I could say, hey, help me split the speaker costs and let's just all bring our staffs together.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Um,
You mentioned professional development a number of times. I think that's one of the things that we do a pretty good job with the podcast of sharing, ideas for professional development. All right, this setup is going to take a while, so bear with me. Okay. You're at a private school. That's where I spent, 20 plus years as an AD and as a head coach in the private school setting. Also, I spent time at the public school. But the last several years, I've heard a number of my public school peers use phrases that for maybe the previous 20 years, I would say that's a private school approach in a good way. So it was good to hear these public schools talking about it. And the phrase that I'm going to choose to use for this example is we want to enhance the student or we want to enhance the student athlete experience. Okay. Um, and relationships is certainly a part of that. 100 years ago, when I was in high school, my football coach or my basketball coach, I don't think they were being evaluated on how well the students liked them or if they were building relationships. It just wasn't a thing. Now it is, and that's a good thing. So here's my question. For your coaches who might not at this moment have the relationship building toolbox tool in their toolbox, what are some things that you do as a leader in that, internal program, your own coaches? How do you help them develop their relationship building tool?
Great question. The first thing that kind of popped into my head is these check-ins that I have with coaches. They get a weekly update essentially from me. But something that I started this year was they're not eligibility grade checks, they're just grade reports. And so I run a grade report on every single athlete, middle school and high school, because we're a K through 12 school. Every middle school and high school athlete, their coaches get this grade report, but also I have highlighted bubble kids essentially. And so, my feedback for them is like, hey, and it's just sometimes it takes me like just saying it, hey, check in with your bubble kids, look at the ones that I've highlighted. And then also at the same time, it's on me too. Like I check in with the bubble kids. If I see them in the hallway, I'll kind of pull them into my office for a minute and say, hey, like what's going on in this class? Because again, a lot of the times there's so many other things going on than what's just in that classroom. And so getting these grade reports from me weekly, our coaches are able to see, okay, hey, there may be something going on with this kid. And I ask our coaches to kind of check in with them. But then also there are some situations in which I'm present in helping bridge if there's a disconnect. And maybe that coach, hasn't dealt with the situation before or needs guidance or help. I'm usually there. I make myself available, and instead of having them meet together, they know that I will always offer to be present for these conversations. And, I think a lot of the times, um, depending on the coach and depending on the situation, I'll take the lead and kind of model how I want that conversation to go. And, it'll always be from a place of support, right? Like, what's going on? Tell me what's happening so that we know why. Okay, if you're having a hard time and you're not making it these practices, but you're not communicating with the coach, like, tell me what's going on, and there's so many things that come out of that conversation that when we debrief, the coach, just essentially says, like, I didn't know any of that was happening. I just know that they're not showing up to practice. They're not giving me a reason why. They're not letting me know beforehand why. And it's like, okay, well, and I think a lot of it just stems from taking the lead on some of those conversations if you know that that coach needs support in that area, but starting it with a question with the student athlete as well. Like, is there something going on that we should know about? Is there something going on that we need to help you with? And, it could be something as simple as, they're responsible for getting their little siblings to school. Well, those little siblings aren't used to getting up and being at practice at 7 o'clock in the morning, right? And so if they're dragging tail, and because they're 8 years old, like, and so kind of being present in those conversations and kind of leading it from an area of support, it kind of lets them know that, okay, hey, it's a safe place, right? Even though this is maybe the coach that I'm too afraid to say why I didn't make it to practice, but making sure that if I kind of get that vibe of that's where it's coming from, I usually take the lead on it and just kind of create the tone and set the tone for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess long story short, as I was transitioning from coach to athletic director coach to just finally an AD for my final, whatever it was, 10, 12 years, um, that was a growth area for me. I coached like my coaches coached me. Let's get to practice, let's work hard, and I don't care why you're late. Those types of things. And I wasn't an a-hole, but I grew and developed, I guess, my empathy tool later on. As you are currently boots on the ground as an AD, is that something that you find with your coaches, let's say the younger generation, even younger than you, Jhoanna, is that something that
Not young anymore, Jake.
is that something that's more generational? Is this generation, do they have that relationship tool more naturally, I guess, or do you still find individuals where you have to kind of help them develop that?
I find that it does not matter like what age these coaches come in. It's always like they consider themselves old school because obviously they're working with kids that are younger than them,
Right,
right?
right.
And so, oh my, I have an old school way of thinking. It's like, no, man, like you, you don't even want to know, what my coach is and how their style and how it just would not work with
Mm-hmm.
today's athlete, right? And I think that you have to kind of get them out of that mindset. We have a lot of younger coaches on our staff, but also at the same time, we have some pretty seasoned coaches.
Right.
And it really helps to have that conversation within your staff of, again, small school, we're 3A TAPS, so we're, had about 125 kids through all four grades. So a lot of our coaches share athletes. And again, it's helping your coaches forge those relationships with themselves, that because they share athletes, they can say, hey, when you had them in the fall, like, what am I missing? What am I glossing over? And like, how am I not connecting with this kid? Or like, what do they respond to? Or how do they respond to you? And how did you do things differently? And so there's a lot of communication, I feel, that I try to foster between coaches in the fact that they share, they share a lot of the same athletes, but with the young coaches, they have a lot of more seasoned coaches to kind of help mentor them. Especially if, and that goes to staffing as well. If there's a really, really young coach, like, I'm not going to staff a team with two young coaches if there's not someone else that could be with them, or two first year
Mhm.
coaches or anything like that, even if it's at a middle school level. So I try to always kind of have a mentor type of, whether it's, varsity and assistant or varsity JV, that type of thing. I try to staff accordingly so that they always have somebody to kind of help guide them in that way. Um, but yeah, I feel like any of the coaches think that they are old school coaching, and no matter how old they are. So I think also too that with the younger coaches, because I have several young coaches on staff, and some of them are first time coaches actually. They haven't acquired that patience yet
Mhm.
of understanding that kids just have
Yeah.
so much more going on these days. That's a whole nother soapbox. But they have so much more going on, and they don't understand that yet. Um, just because they've just come out of it themselves, and they're just having a really hard time understanding that at times when it first starts. Like, why are they not listening to me? I sound like a broken record. I was like, well, I coached you, so I I know that sometimes you made me feel that way, and so just kind of helping them understand that you just got to talk them through it. You have to teach. You just have to love teaching, actually. Coaching and teaching are two really different things at times, but at the root, it's all the same things, right? So kind of teaching them that patience is probably the biggest thing I've had to teach with younger coaches right now. It's not even really empathy, it's just patience uh, with the kids these days.
Yeah.
Kids these
I,
days. It's
you gave about a dozen different key points there. Again, you wrapped it kind of up in the 28-year-old coach saying I'm an old school coach.
yeah.
I
No,
I
no,
love
you're
that.
not.
I had somebody tell this to me. This was a couple years ago, and I think I changed my opinion on it, maybe weekly or every time it comes up. Teaching and coaching. This person said, and again, they were a longtime teacher coach. They said they were in both worlds, if you will. They said teaching is the what, coaching includes the why. That there was more motivation
Hmm.
involved. And I remember, I'm sure you're the same way, Joanna. I
Yeah.
had some teachers that they they had no interest, no desire, and maybe never did set foot on, or not set foot on, but go to a basketball game or go to a football game. But they were passionate about their subject, and they coached their subject just as hard, if you will, as any sport coach. But I kind of get the limiting definition of teaching versus coaching. What are your thoughts on that statement?
I and I guess maybe I have a little bit of a bias being at the school that I'm at. Like, there are so many teachers that are tenured and have been here over 40 years. And so I've been blessed with um having teaching mentors and teachers that are in the classroom that are not coaches but coach in the classroom.
Right.
And so I know that's like I don't know, it's a unicorn, I feel like now. um but there's a math, and she just comes to mind. There's a math teacher, a middle school math teacher here, who actually goes by coach.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't coach anything, has coached before but doesn't coach anything. But she views, and again, math is such a core subject, right? Like, especially middle school math. You know, I don't think I use anything that I learned from pre-cal now in my current job in my high school math classes. Algebra, geometry, long division. Yeah, I use all that now, right? But those are like those core foundational
Right.
math subjects. And she views teaching math, they call her coach because she feels like she coaches math.
Hmm.
And it is, kids who on faculty appreciation night or kids who talk about the best math teacher that they had here so often name her because of the way she approaches it. Which, again, and there are some teachers who teach and just that, right? But I feel like I've been blessed to be, in an environment where so many of our teachers are coaches of that subject. And there's just a huge difference. Like you feel it, you
Well,
know?
those are the just like those are the teachers you want,
Correct.
for your kids or for you. But those are the types of coaches that you want. You don't
Mhm.
want the boring coach or the unfeeling coach, the coach
Yeah.
that doesn't seem to be passionate. Uh, Talking about math, one of the schools I was at, he didn't coach, but he was a great guy. He's very supportive. He helped with our pep rallies. He's a math teacher, but he wanted to know if I would print him, and I did, a polo shirt and have the title under our low school logo that said mathletic director. And then we bought
Nice.
a bunch of T-shirts for the math elites, and he was the pre-calc and that guy teaching. But just he was already all in. But for a listener, if you're struggling to make a connection, or as Jhoanna says, build a relationship
Yeah.
with your academics, hey, there's a not an olive branch, but there's a something you can throw out to build that relationship and maybe get more support, or at least create another fan for your program.
Absolutely.
Mm.
No, I feel like sometimes, I have conversations with our coaches and I'm the type where I'm the eternal optimist. Like I don't know. It's everything during COVID I adopted just the saying, it's fine, I'm fine, you're fine, everything's gonna be fine. And so around here I'm kind of known as that. I'm the everything is fine person because I just try to kind of maintain the calm, when everybody else's hair is on fire or coach's hair is on fire. I try to balance that. But also at the same time, I have to like step back and kind of see if I'm having to have conversations with coaches about, hey, like, we just need to take it down a notch. You just need to calm down, like, you know, recenter for a second and like let's talk through things. Post conversation, I always kind of have to come back and say, you know what, like I'm really lucky that they're that passionate about their sport, that they're, up in arms about this, right? And so um to me it helps me kind of ground myself after those conversations because when they're in season, they're just a different person. Like when a coach is in season, they can be a very, very different person. And so I try to kind of have that open door policy where I can let them word vomit for a little while. And but there's so many times that I have to say, like, hey, it's okay, like let's talk this through, let's calm down a little bit. But then afterwards, I have to like say it's a good problem to have. They care that much that this is consuming them, because it could be quite the opposite, right? Like it could be someone who I have to constantly try to pull that out of them. And so that's kind of a change in mindset I had to give myself sometimes when I was constantly having to, talk with our coaches that are in season because they're getting too fired up or um they're just on DEFCON 5 all the time. And it's like, we don't need to be on DEFCON 5. But again, it's just how you look at everything, right? And so it's just how you look at everything and how you take everything. I try to take everything in stride and just kind of try to see the positives that they're passionate enough about their job and their team and their sport that, this is a good problem to have, essentially.
No, no, it's like my boss would always say, they're not problems, they're opportunities.
Correct.
And you talk
So
about being,
cliche, but very true.
it's true. Yeah. No, you talk about being an optimist. I think I'm the same way. I think many ADs, and it's not so much optimistic, it's, hey, let's find a solution. How do we
Yeah.
make this work instead of, bitching and moaning and complaining about it?
Mhm.
Although I did have someone tell me once, and I'll use this frequently, an optimist can never be pleasantly surprised. Okay.
Yeah,
So anyway,
that's true.
Jhoanna, this has just been great. We could go on and on. Love spending time with you, but I know you have a real job. If one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit more, build their relationships and connections in the AD world, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Sure. My email is jcayme dash mosley Cayme-Mosely at lakehillprep.org.
Okay. And again, you can find Jhoanna's previous podcast visits, and I encourage you to do so on the Educational AD podcast. You can also find them in the books, which are available on Amazon. Jhoanna, all the best as fall transitions into winter. I'm sure we've talked about this, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Are we going to see you in Tampa here in about 9 days?
Um, Actually, no, I was trying to get there and I there's some things with my schedule that came up that I actually have to be here for. So I think I told you last year that because it was in Austin and I think I missed it. It was in Texas last year, correct? And
Right.
I
Mm-hmm.
missed it and I think we talked about it at the last podcast that I would try to get there for this December, but we have basketball tournaments and soccer and everything else, and so I'm not able to get away. But it's on my list. It is definitely on my list of one of those things that I am going to get to one day. Do you go every year?
Uh, Pretty much.
Okay.
I'm on national faculty, so I get to help teach a course, and
Oh, that's fun.
usually that's about all I do since I've retired. This year, I'm introducing a speaker. I'm helping out with the cornhole tournament. I'm just doing a lot. And it's
Oh
fun.
my
It's fun to be
gosh, there's a
involved. Yeah,
cornhole tournament.
yeah.
Oh, had I known that, I would have moved everything around on my schedule.
Well, I know you don't need advice from a broken down athletic director, but this is what I would tell my coaches, and they knew it. Okay, I'm going to be gone for these 5 days. If you want to travel, you want to go play at somebody else's gym, go to a tournament, knock yourself out. But we are not hosting any events while I am out of town. I don't want to get that phone call about this went
Yeah,
wrong.
I
And
like
over
that
the
actually.
years, and I'm sure you have coaches like this. I knew that, like my boys soccer coach. He knew how to run his tournament and everything was going to be fine. So we let him do that. But there's something you can try if that helps for
Yeah,
future
I like
years.
that. Actually, I like that a lot. So,
Okay. Well, thanks again. As always, thanks to our listeners for tuning in. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do Toolbox Extra just about every week and just about every day. We try to share stories and best practices from the world of athletics. So please come back and join us again on the next Toolbox Extra on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. Well, what a great resource. Make sure you reach out to Jhoanna Cayme-Mosely, Lakehill Prep in Texas. Also, reach out to our sponsors. These are all companies that I used as a AD, as a coach. They're great companies. You should be using them too. Hometown, you'll find them at hometown.com. Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Athletic surveys. If you're not using a survey to take the pulse of your school, you're really missing out. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle. As an AD, we were a Huddle school. Go to huddle.com. SnapRaise. If you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. It's snapraise.com. Home Campus. You've heard me say before, it's a platform you're going to use every single day. Go to homecampus.com. Gipper. Create world-class social media content at gipper.com. Sideline Interactive, probably the best purchase I ever made as an AD was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. And Beacon Creative Wall of Fame. You'll find them a couple of different ways. Right now, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. You can also reach out to their CEO, and that would be John. His name's John Townsend, but the email is john@beaconwalloffame.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.